Welcome to the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Enjoy the listening. The holographic notification burst into existence above Jason Miller's workbench, scattering blue light across the partially disassembled propulsion system he'd been calibrating. His heart stopped as he read the Galactic Federation emblem at the top. "No," he muttered, hands freezing on his tools. No. The message was brief and devastating. "Congratulations. You have been selected for the mandatory Alien Brides program. Your genetic profile has been matched with a Federation citizen. Reporting for processing is required within 48 hours. Jason slumped back in his chair, running his hands through his disheveled dark hair. The lab's familiar hum of machinery felt suddenly oppressive. 3 months ago, when humanity had made first contact and the Federation had announced their cultural exchange program, he'd dismissed it as someone else's problem. Now here he was, being drafted into an arranged marriage with an alien. He jabbed the appeal button on the hologram. "Grounds for appeal?" "None available," the automated system chirped. "Selection is final and binding under Earth Federation Treaty Article 7. "I'm an engineer, for Christ's sake," Jason said to the empty lab. "I build engines. I'm not some diplomatic breeding stock." His supervisor, Dr. Chen, appeared in the doorway. "I heard cursing. Bad news?" Jason gestured at the hovering notification. "I've been selected. For the program." "Ah." Chen's expression shifted from concern to carefully neutral. "Well, that's congratulations?" "Don't." Jason stood abruptly, pacing the length of his workbench. "There has to be a way out of this. I could resign my position, move to—" "You know that won't work," Chen said quietly. "The treaty's binding for all Earth citizens, and the Federation's technology is keeping us safe from 3 different hostile species. We can't afford to refuse them." Jason's shoulders slumped. "I know. I never thought it would be me." The next 48 hours passed in a blur of mandatory medical screenings and cultural briefings. Jason barely absorbed the endless stream of information about Federation customs and protocols. His mind kept circling back to one terrifying fact. He was about to be married to something he'd never even met. The processing center loomed before him, a gleaming tower of impossible architecture that somehow merged organic curves with crystalline precision. Jason adjusted his regulation formal wear, wishing he could loosen the collar that felt like it was slowly strangling him. "Mr. Miller," a human liaison approached, tablet in hand. "Your match has arrived. Please follow me." The meeting chamber was designed to be neutral territory, with comfortable seating arranged around a low table. Jason's attention, however, was immediately drawn to the woman standing by the window, if woman was even the right word. Her skin was a deep, rich blue that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. Dark hair fell in waves past her shoulders, framing features that were startlingly human yet somehow more refined, as if sculpted by an artist with an impossible eye for beauty. When she turned to face him, her eyes caught the light, iridescent silver with hints of violet. "Hello, Jason," she said, her voice carrying an accent he couldn't quite place. "I'm Rima." Her lips curved into a smile that managed to be both diplomatic and genuinely warm. Jason realized he was staring. "Hi," he managed, then immediately wanted to kick himself for such a basic response. Rima's smile widened. "You seem nervous." "Don't worry, I don't bite." She paused, tilting her head. "Unless that's something humans enjoy?" Jason choked on air and Rima laughed, a musical sound that somehow eased some of the tension in his shoulders. "That was a joke," she said, moving closer. "I've been studying human humor. How did I do?" "Pretty well, actually," Jason admitted, finding himself smiling despite everything. "Though maybe save the biting jokes for after the first meeting." "Noted." Rima gestured to the seating area. Shall we talk? I imagine you have questions. I know I do. As they sat down, Jason noticed the subtle patterns that seemed to shift beneath her skin. Not quite bioluminescent, but something similar. Yeah, I do. Starting with, why me? You're obviously... He gestured vaguely at her entire being, and I'm just an engineer. Just an engineer. Rima raised an elegant eyebrow. You're one of Earth's leading experts in theoretical propulsion systems. Your work on quantum field manipulation is fascinating. Jason blinked. You've read my work? Of course. Did you think this was random? She leaned forward, her eyes intense. I chose you, Jason. You chose me? Jason's mind raced to process this information. I thought the matches were made by some kind of algorithm. They are, for most participants. Rima crossed her legs, her movements fluid and graceful. But as a diplomatic representative's daughter, I was given more flexibility in the selection process. The liaison cleared her throat. I'll give you two some privacy to get acquainted. She retreated, closing the door behind her. So, Jason said, trying to gather his thoughts, you read my research and decided to marry me, just like that? Rima's expression turned thoughtful. Your work shows innovation, creativity, and a willingness to challenge established theories. Those are rare qualities in any species. She paused, a hint of vulnerability crossing her features. And I'd rather choose my own path than have one chosen for me. Even if that path leads to Earth? Jason couldn't keep the skepticism from his voice. We must seem pretty primitive compared to the Federation. Primitive? Rima laughed again. You achieved faster-than-light theory without quantum mapping. Do you know how extraordinary that is? Her eyes lit up with genuine excitement. Your species does the impossible simply because no one told you it was impossible. It's fascinating. Jason felt his face warm at her enthusiasm. Most people just call it stubborn. Perhaps. Rima stood suddenly, moving to the window. Come here. I want to show you something. Hesitantly, Jason joined her. The view from the processing center overlooked the city, where human architecture now stood alongside the alien structures that had appeared after first contact. What do you see? Rima asked. A mess, Jason answered honestly. Nothing fits together. The styles clash. The proportions are all wrong. I see possibility, Rima interrupted. Two civilizations learning to exist together, making mistakes, finding solutions. She turned to face him. That's what this program is really about. Not just political alliances or genetic diversity, but proving that different species can build something new together. Their eyes met, and for a moment, Jason felt the weight of what she was suggesting. This wasn't just about them. It was about the future of both their species. I should warn you, he said, trying to lighten the mood. I'm terrible at diplomatic functions. I once spilled coffee on the CEO of my company during a presentation. Rima's lips twitched. I once called a Centaurian ambassador a crystalline waste formation because I mixed up the words for respected and excremented in their language. Jason couldn't help but laugh. How did that go over? Surprisingly well. Turns out they consider waste formations sacred. Her expression grew more serious. I don't expect this to be easy, Jason, but I think we could make a good team. Before he could respond, a chime sounded through the room. The liaison returned, tablet ready. If you're both prepared, we can begin the preliminary bonding ceremony. Jason's pulse quickened. Already? Don't we need more time to... Time is unfortunately a luxury we don't have, the liaison said. The Federation Council has set strict deadlines for the program's implementation. Rima touched his arm gently, sending an unexpected warmth through his body. We can have the full ceremonial bonding later, with family present. This is just the legal portion. Jason looked at her, really looked at her. Beyond the alien beauty and diplomatic poise, he saw someone taking an enormous risk, choosing an unknown path, just like him. "All right," he said finally. "Let's do this." The liaison began reciting the formal agreement in both English and the Federation's standard language. As Jason listened to the words that would bind him to this extraordinary being beside him, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this program and to Rima's choice than anyone was telling him. The ceremony itself was brief but surreal. Jason found himself repeating words in both English and the Federation's musical language. His hand joined with Rima's. Her skin was warm, almost feverishly so, and that subtle pattern beneath it seemed to pulse in time with her heartbeat. "By the authority of Earth's United Government and the Galactic Federation Alliance," the liaison concluded, "you are now officially bonded." Rima squeezed his hand gently before letting go. "There. That wasn't so terrible, was it?" "Ask me again in a year," Jason muttered, then quickly added, "Sorry, I didn't mean—" "No, please," Rima interrupted. "I prefer honesty to diplomacy. We'll have enough of the latter at the reception tonight." Jason's head snapped up. "Reception? What reception?" "The formal introduction of new bonds to Federation society." Rima's expression turned apologetic. "It's traditional and mandatory." Hours later, Jason stood awkwardly in a vast chamber that seemed to be made entirely of living crystal. Dozens of species mingled around them, some humanoid, others decidedly not. He tugged at his new formal wear, a gift from Rima that somehow adjusted itself to fit him perfectly. "Stop fidgeting," Rima whispered, appearing at his side with two glasses of something iridescent. "You look fine." "I feel like I'm being dissected by every set of eyes in here." He accepted the drink cautiously. "How many sets are there exactly?" "Only about 300. She smiled at his expression. "Relax. Most of them are just curious. Humans are still quite novel." A tall, aristocratic-looking alien approached them. His blue skin was several shades darker than Rima's, and his formal robe seemed to ripple with contained energy. "Father," Rima said, her posture straightening almost imperceptibly. "May I present Jason Miller, my bonded—" "Ambassador," Jason managed, attempting a slight bow. The ambassador's silver eyes studied him with an intensity that made Jason feel like an interesting specimen under a microscope. "Engineer Miller, your work on quantum field manipulation is intriguing." "You've read my work too?" Jason blurted out before he could stop himself. "I make it my business to know everything about those who join our family." The ambassador's tone was neutral, but something in it raised Jason's hackles, especially when they possess such unique insights. Before Jason could respond, a commotion near the entrance drew everyone's attention. A human-alien couple had entered, but something was wrong. A woman Jason vaguely recognized from the news, was arguing loudly with her alien partner. "I won't be part of this," she was saying. "You can't just—" She cut off suddenly, her eyes going wide, then blank. Her alien partner led her away smoothly, as if nothing had happened. Jason turned to Rima, questions forming, but she was already moving through the crowd, pulling him along. "We should mingle," she said firmly. "There are many people you should meet." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of introductions and careful conversations, but Jason couldn't shake what he'd seen, or the way the ambassador had looked at him. As they finally left the reception, he noticed Rima's hands were trembling slightly. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Just tired. It's been a long day." As they reached their assigned quarters, a luxurious suite that would be their home until permanent arrangements were made, Rima paused at the door. "Jason," she said, her voice low, "whatever happens, remember that I chose you for a reason." Before he could ask what she meant, she was inside, leaving him alone with his growing suspicions and one certainty. He was now part of something much bigger and possibly much more dangerous than a simple cultural exchange program. Morning light filtered through the semi-transparent walls of their quarters, casting iridescent patterns across the rumpled sheets. Jason woke to find Rima watching him, her silver eyes soft with an expression he was still learning to read. The events of the previous night rushed back, their tentative exploration of each other, the surprising compatibility of their bodies, the way her skin had literally glowed at the height of passion. "You're thinking too loudly," Rima murmured, tracing a pattern on his chest. "Having regrets?" "Only about not getting my genetic structure enhanced sooner," Jason replied, earning a delighted laugh from her. "I had no idea you could, that we could, be so compatible." Her smile turned mischievous. "We're not so different where it matters, though I must say your stamina was impressive for a human." Jason felt his face heat. "I aimed to exceed expectations." "That you did." She stretched languorously, her blue skin catching the light. Multiple times, in fact. 3 weeks into their new life together, Jason was starting to notice patterns. Their designated residence on New Geneva, a neutral world serving as the hub for the mandatory Alien Brides program, was luxurious but clearly designed for observation. Every surface held subtle scanning technology, disguised as decorative elements. He discovered this while attempting to modify their environmental controls. "Right, come look at this," he called out one evening. Rima appeared from her study area, where she'd been reviewing diplomatic protocols. "What did you find?" Jason pointed to the crystalline structure he'd partially disassembled. "This isn't just a temperature regulator. It's gathering biometric data. Heart rate, hormone levels, genetic markers." He frowned. "Why would they need that? Perhaps it's for health monitoring." But Rima's tone wasn't quite convincing. "Then why hide it?" Jason sat back on his heels, mind racing. "And why are all the human participants I've met showing similar genetic patterns? The woman at the reception last week, her DNA readout was almost identical to mine in certain markers." Rima's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "You shouldn't be accessing other participants' data." "I'm not. The patterns show up on basic environmental scans." He stood, approaching her. "Right. What aren't you telling me?" Before she could answer, their communication panel chimed. "Diplomatic function in 30 minutes, the automated system announced. "Attendance mandatory." "We should get ready," Rima said quickly, turning away. But Jason caught her arm gently. "This isn't just about cultural exchange, is it?" She met his eyes, and for a moment he saw conflict there. "No," she whispered. "But I can't. Not yet. Please trust me." The diplomatic function was held in one of New Geneva's floating pavilions, crystal platforms suspended in the perpetual twilight zone between the planet's dual suns. Jason found himself drawn into a conversation with other human participants, while Rima was occupied with Federation officials. "Have you noticed anything strange?" a woman named Sarah asked quietly, glancing around to ensure they weren't overheard. "About the medical screenings?" "You mean besides the fact that they're daily?" Jason replied carefully. "Or that they're particularly interested in certain genetic markers?" Sarah's eyes widened slightly. "So you've seen it too. My background's in genetics. These aren't random samplings. They're looking for something specific." "Or trying to create something specific," another man joined in. "Tom, if Jason remembered correctly. My wife, my alien wife, she's been asking strange questions about human reproductive capabilities." A shadow fell across their group. "Fascinating discussion," Ambassador Kren, Rima's father, said smoothly. "I trust you're all finding the program enlightening." The group scattered quickly, but not before Jason noticed how Sarah's eyes went briefly unfocused, just like the woman at the reception weeks ago. She wandered away, her previous intensity replaced by a placid smile. That night, unable to sleep, Jason found Rima in their living area, staring out at the twin moons. "Your father can control minds, can't he?" he asked without preamble. Rima didn't turn around. "Not exactly. It's more like suggestion, temporary compliance." "Is that what you'll do to me? If I get too close to the truth?" Now she did turn, and the pain in her eyes was unmistakable. "Never. That's why I chose you, Jason. Your mind, the way it works, how it resists standard patterns. You're different." "Different how?" She moved closer, taking his hands. "Your genetic structure. It's naturally resistant to psychic influence. That's rare, even among humans. The Federation has been looking for people like you." "Why?" "Because they're afraid." She glanced at the windows, then pulled him into their bedroom. The one place she'd shown him was truly private, free of monitoring. "Our species is stagnating. We need genetic diversity, yes, but more than that, we need the human capacity for innovation, for rebellion." Jason sat on the edge of their bed, processing this. "So, the whole program is a breeding initiative, yes, but not the way you think." Rima paced, her agitation visible in the quickening patterns under her skin. "The Federation wants to create a new generation that combines human adaptability with our psychic abilities, but controlled, predictable. And those who aren't predictable get their minds adjusted?" Jason's voice hardened as he remembered Sarah's blank expression. Most of the matches were carefully selected for compatibility and compliance. Rima stopped pacing, kneeling before him. "But some of us recognize the potential for something else, a true merger of our species, not just a controlled experiment. That's why you chose me, to be part of some resistance." "I chose you because your mind fascinated me," she said fiercely. "The resistance came after, when I realized what you could mean for both our peoples." Jason stood abruptly, running his hands through his hair. "This is insane. We're talking about fighting an entire galactic federation. We're talking about ensuring freedom of choice." Rima's eyes blazed. "For humans, for my people, for our—" She hesitated, then placed a hand on her abdomen. "For our children." Jason froze. "Are you—" "Not yet. But the compatibility tests were positive. It's possible." She stepped closer. "And any child we have would inherit your mental resistance and my abilities. They would be truly free." A chime from their communication panel interrupted them. "Attention all program participants. Mandatory genetic screening will begin in 1 hour." "We can't let them know I've told you this," Rima said urgently. "You need to act normal. Continue your work. Meanwhile, I'll try to contact others who think like us." Over the next few weeks, Jason threw himself into his assigned projects at the Federation's research facility, all while carefully gathering information. He noticed how certain human participants disappeared for special treatments and returned changed, how the Federation's databases contained detailed genetic maps of every human bloodline. Late one night, after another diplomatic function where they'd watched 3 more humans get adjusted, Rima shared her own fears. "My father suspects something," she whispered in the darkness of their bedroom. "He keeps asking about our compatibility, our future plans." Jason pulled her closer, feeling the now familiar warmth of her skin against his. "We'll figure this out. My access to the main databases is growing. There has to be evidence we can use." "Be careful," she warned. "The moment they suspect you're looking too closely, they'll try to adjust me?" He attempted a smile. "Good luck with that." But 3 days later, Jason found something that changed everything. Hidden deep in the research files was a project labeled Genesis Protocol, detailed plans for selective breeding across multiple generations, complete with psychological conditioning procedures and genetic modification sequences. He was so absorbed in the data that he didn't hear the lab door open. Fascinating reading, isn't it? Ambassador Kren's voice cut through the silence. Jason's blood ran cold as he turned to face Rima's father. Behind him stood two Federation security officers, their weapons already drawn. "I had such hopes for you, Jason," the ambassador sighed. "Your genetic resistance would have produced exceptional offspring, but it seems that same trait makes you problematic." "Father, no." Rima appeared in the doorway, her face pale. "Please, you can't." "Can't what, daughter? Protect our species' future. Ensure our survival." The ambassador's eyes hardened. "Take him to adjustment, and confine my daughter to quarters until this rebellion has been dealt with." As the officers moved forward, Jason's mind raced. He could see Rima's desperate expression, feel the weight of everything they'd discovered. Whatever happened next would determine not just their fate, but potentially the future of both their species. Jason's fingers flew across the console, initiating the emergency protocol he'd secretly coded over the past weeks. The lab's lights flickered and alarms began blaring throughout the facility. "Security breach detected. Emergency containment protocols initiated," the automated system announced. "Stop him," the ambassador commanded, but Jason was already moving. He grabbed Rima's hand and pulled her through the doorway as the lab's blast doors began to close, separating them from the security officers and her father. "You planned this?" Rima asked as they ran through the corridors, their footsteps echoing off the crystalline walls. "Let's just say I learned from your example about having backup plans." They rounded a corner, heading for the transportation hub. "The system will be in chaos for about 10 minutes. Every door in the facility is either opening or closing randomly." Behind them, they could hear shouts and the sound of weapons being discharged. The ambassador's voice boomed through the facility's communication system. "This is a direct order. Apprehend the human Jason Miller and my daughter. They are to be taken alive." They reached the transport bay just as another group of security officers appeared at the far end of the corridor. "Rima," one of them called out, "your father only wants to protect you. Think about what you're doing." Rima's response was to slam her hand on the transport bay's control panel, causing the doors to seal behind them. "I am thinking about it," she muttered. "I'm thinking about how many others you've protected by erasing their minds." Jason was already working on hot-wiring one of the smaller transport vessels. "Please tell me you know how to fly one of these things." "Of course." Rima's fingers danced across the ship's external access panel. "But they'll track any official vessel." "Who said anything about official?" Jason grinned, pulling a data crystal from his pocket. "I downloaded the Genesis Protocol files, complete with tracking codes for unofficial Federation vessels, including the ones they use for their own escape plans." The ship's hatch opened with a soft hiss. Outside, they could hear the security teams attempting to breach the transport bay doors. "Jason," Rima said as they climbed aboard, "once we do this, there's no going back. The Federation will hunt us across every system." "They're already going to do that." He took her hand. "At least this way we have a chance to expose what they're really doing, to give everyone a choice." The ship's engines hummed to life just as the transport bay doors began to crack. Through the widening gap, Jason caught a glimpse of Ambassador Kren's face, contorted with a mixture of rage and something that might have been fear. "Rima," her father's voice crackled through the ship's comm system, "don't throw away everything we've worked for. Your child could be the key to our species' salvation." Rima's hands tightened on the ship's controls. "No, father, my child will be free to choose their own destiny." She engaged the engines at full power, just like I'm choosing mine. The ship shot forward, breaking through the facility's protective barrier and into the star-filled sky of New Geneva. Behind them, alarms continued to blare and Jason could see other vessels beginning to launch in pursuit. "We have about 30 seconds before they get their weapons online," he said, pulling up the navigation system. "Where are we heading?" Rima's expression was determined as she pushed the ship faster. "There's a resistance group, other couples like us who've discovered the truth. They have a base in the Outer Rim territories." She glanced at him. "It won't be comfortable or safe. Nothing worth fighting for ever is." Jason began inputting coordinates. "Besides, I'm getting pretty good at exceeding expectations." As their ship prepared to jump to hyperspace, Rima allowed herself a small smile. "That you are, my love. That you are." The last thing they saw before the jump was the glow of New Geneva's twin suns, lighting up the sky like a promise of dawn after the longest night. The Outer Rim wasn't just a location, it was a state of mind. Jason learned this quickly as their stolen ship limped into the hidden resistance base, tucked inside an asteroid field that normal sensors couldn't penetrate. 2 months of running, hiding, and narrow escapes had taught them both what freedom really cost. "Home sweet home," Rima said, expertly guiding their vessel through the gravitational maze. "At least for now." The base revealed itself like a mirage, a sprawling complex of interconnected structures carved directly into the largest asteroid. As they docked, Jason spotted other couples, human and alien pairs who'd made the same choice they had. Sarah, the geneticist from New Geneva, was waiting for them in the hangar. "You made it!" She rushed forward to embrace them both. "When we heard about your escape, we thought—" "That the Federation caught us?" Jason grinned. "They tried. Several times." "The Genesis protocol files?" Sarah asked urgently. Rima produced the data crystal. Everything, including the psychological conditioning procedures they were using on the non-compliant participants. Inside the base's command center, they found more familiar faces, other couples who'd discovered the truth and chosen to fight back. Tom was there with his alien wife, along with at least 20 other pairs. "The Federation's getting desperate," Tom reported, pulling up a holographic display of recent movements. "They're accelerating the program, taking more aggressive measures to ensure compliance." "Then we need to move faster," Jason said, connecting his crystal to the base's systems. "The annual Federation Assembly is in 3 weeks. Every major species will have representatives there." "You're not suggesting—" Sarah's eyes widened. "A public exposure?" Rima's expression was fierce. "That's exactly what we're suggesting. Let everyone see what their precious cultural exchange program really is." "It's suicide," Tom argued. "The security will be impossible to breach." Jason pulled up the schematics he'd stolen. "Not if you have the daughter of a high-ranking ambassador who knows all the back doors and an engineer who spent 2 months studying their security protocols. Planning consumed the next 3 weeks. Every couple contributed their unique knowledge and skills. Sarah's genetic expertise helped decode the more complex aspects of the breeding program. Tom's experience with Federation communication systems proved invaluable for their infiltration strategy. Through it all, Jason watched Rima grow stronger in her conviction. The diplomatic mask she'd worn for so long had been replaced by something more real, a warrior's determination mixed with a revolutionary's hope. Late one night, as they lay in their small quarters, she placed his hand on her abdomen. "I'm sure now," she whispered. "We're going to have a daughter." Jason's breath caught. "How—" "I can sense her consciousness forming. She's like you, strong, resistant to control. But she also has my abilities. She's perfect." "More reason to succeed," Jason said, pulling her closer. "I want her to grow up in a universe where she can choose her own path." The assembly hall of the Galactic Federation loomed before them, its crystalline spires reaching into the violet sky of the capital world. Jason adjusted his stolen diplomatic credentials, feeling the weight of the moment. "Ready?" Rima asked, her formal robes concealing both her advanced pregnancy and the technical equipment they'd need. "Born ready," he replied, though his heart hammered against his ribs. "Are people in position?" She nodded slightly. Around the massive complex, other resistance couples were taking their places, each with a specific role in what was about to unfold. The security scan was the first hurdle. Jason held his breath as they passed through, but Rima's modifications to their genetic signatures held. The guards waved them through with barely a glance. Inside, the assembly hall buzzed with activity. Representatives from hundreds of worlds mingled, their varied forms creating a living tapestry of galactic diversity. On the main stage, Federation officials were preparing for the annual address. "Your father's here," Jason murmured, spotting Ambassador Kren among the dignitaries. "I see him." Rima's voice was tight. "He's already sensed me. We need to move quickly." They separated, each heading to their designated positions. Jason made his way to the Environmental Control Center, his stolen maintenance credentials getting him past the final security checkpoint. Inside, he found exactly what they'd expected, a sophisticated system that did far more than regulate temperature. "It's not just the assembly hall," he spoke quietly into his hidden communicator. "They're using the environmental systems to maintain low-level psychic compliance throughout the entire capital." "Confirmation of what we suspected," Sarah's voice crackled back. "Ready on our end." Jason's fingers flew across the control panels, uploading the virus they'd designed. It would take exactly 7 minutes to fully integrate with the system. 7 minutes they'd have to keep everyone distracted. On the main floor, Rima was making her move. She approached the stage just as her father began the opening address. "Distinguished representatives," Ambassador Kren was saying, "we gather today to celebrate another successful year of galactic unity. Unity built on lies." Rima's voice rang out, amplified by the hall's perfect acoustics. "Or shall we tell them about the Genesis Protocol, Father?" The assembly hall fell silent. Ambassador Kren's face darkened. "My daughter is unwell," he announced smoothly. "Security, please." "Show them," Rima commanded, and on every display screen in the hall the stolen files began to play. Genetic modification sequences, psychological conditioning procedures, breeding predictions. "The mandatory Alien Brides program isn't about cultural exchange," Rima continued, her voice strong and clear. "It's about creating a controlled hybrid species, one that combines human adaptability with our psychic abilities, but remains under Federation control." Chaos erupted in the hall. Some representatives stood in shock. Others began shouting questions. Security forces moved toward Rima, but other couples in the crowd stepped forward, forming a protective circle around her. In the control room, Jason watched the countdown. 3 minutes until the virus fully deployed. 2 minutes. 1. Suddenly, the door burst open. Ambassador Kren stood there, flanked by security officers. "Step away from the controls," he ordered. "It's too late," Jason said, not moving. "The virus is already in the system. In about 30 seconds, every psychic dampener and control mechanism in this facility will shut down. Everyone will be free to think for themselves, maybe for the first time in years." "You fool," Kren snarled. "Do you know what you've done? The chaos you'll unleash." "I believe," Jason replied calmly, "that's called freedom." The system chimed, and throughout the facility, subtle frequencies that had hummed for years finally fell silent. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Throughout the assembly hall, beings of all species shook their heads as if waking from a long dream. The security forces lowered their weapons, confusion evident on their faces. On the main floor, Rima stood tall, her blue skin glowing with an inner light that seemed to illuminate the truth for all to see. "Look around you," she called out. "Feel the difference. This is what real choice feels like." Jason made his way back to the main floor, past the stunned security officers and his equally stunned father-in-law. The other resistance couples were already distributing evidence packages to every representative, years of documented manipulation and control. "The Federation Council will answer for this," a Centaurian representative declared, their crystalline form vibrating with anger. "These violations of sovereignty." "Wait," Rima stepped forward, her hand finding Jason's. "This isn't about punishment. It's about change, about choosing a better way forward." She turned to face her father, who stood frozen on the stage. "The Federation's fear of chaos led us down this path, but look at what real unity looks like." She gestured to the couples around them, human and alien pairs who had found each other despite the manipulation, not because of it. "Our daughter will be born into a galaxy where she can choose her own path," Rima announced, her hand resting on her abdomen. "Just as every child should be free to choose, the Federation can still be a force for unity, but real unity, built on trust and genuine understanding." The assembly hall erupted in applause. Even some council members were nodding, the truth of her words breaking through years of rigid thinking. 6 months later, Jason stood on the balcony of their home on Rima's homeworld, their newborn daughter cradled in his arms. Below, in the capital city's central plaza, dozens of couples, human and alien, gathered for a celebration of the new voluntary exchange program. "She has your eyes," Rima said softly, joining them, "and your stubborn streak." "Poor kid," Jason chuckled, watching their daughter's silver eyes track the movement of ships in the twilight sky. "Though I notice she already has your talent for getting her way." "Speaking of which," Rima hesitated, "the new Federation Council has asked me to serve as their ambassador for interspecies relations." Jason turned to face her, eyebrows raised. "And I told them I'd only accept if my human husband could continue his work on advancing propulsion technology. After all, we're still discovering new ways our species can complement each other." Their daughter made a small sound and patterns of light danced across her pale blue skin, a perfect blend of both her heritages. "You know," Jason said, pulling Rima close, "your father actually spoke to me yesterday. Said he's beginning to understand what we saw all along. That love can't be engineered, that the best discoveries happen when you let people find their own way." Below them, the celebration continued as the twin suns set, painting the sky in colors that seemed to promise an ever brighter future. Their daughter reached out toward the lights, and both her parents smiled, knowing she would grow up in a galaxy where her choices would be her own. But in the deepest reaches of space, in hidden laboratories and secret councils, other plans were already taking shape. The Federation had learned its lesson about direct control, but there were always other ways to shape the future. For now, though, there was just this moment, a family united by choice, standing witness to the beginning of a new era of true understanding between worlds. Epilogue. 2 years later. The sunset view from their balcony never got old. Jason watched as their daughter Nova took her first wobbly steps, her silver eyes bright with determination, pale blue skin shimmering with excitement. She stumbled, caught herself, and kept going, stubborn, just like both her parents. "She's getting faster," Rima observed, leaning against the railing. "We'll have to child-proof the quantum lab." "Already done." Jason grinned, though I caught her trying to decode the security protocols yesterday. At age 2, she takes after her father. Rima's eyes sparkled with amusement, always looking for ways through barriers. Below them, the capital city hummed with life. The new interspecies cultural center dominated the skyline, a place where humans and aliens could meet, learn about each other, and choose their own paths forward. No compulsion, no manipulation, just genuine connection. Nova toddled over to the railing, pointing excitedly at a passing ship. The patterns under her skin pulsed with curiosity, a perfect blend of her parents' traits. "Message from your father," Jason said, checking his communicator. "He wants to know if we're coming to the naming ceremony for the new diplomatic academy, the one he's insisting on calling the Miller-Kren Institute for Interspecies Understanding." Rima shook her head, smiling. "He's trying so hard to make amends." "People can change," Jason said, scooping up Nova as she tried to climb the railing. "When they're given the freedom to choose it." Rima's expression turned thoughtful. "Have you seen the reports from the Outer Rim about the new genetic research facilities?" "Sarah's keeping an eye on it." Jason bounced Nova in his arms, making her giggle. "Some battles are never quite over." "No," Rima agreed, taking his free hand. "But this time we're ready, and we're not alone." Nova reached out, touching both their faces with tiny fingers that already showed signs of both human dexterity and alien sensitivity. In her eyes, they could see the future they'd fought for, one where barriers between species were bridges waiting to be built. The last light of the twin suns faded, leaving the sky awash in stars. Somewhere out there, new challenges waited. But here, in this moment, was everything they'd risked their lives to achieve: the freedom to love, to choose, and to build something new together. And that was worth fighting for, every single time. Dear listeners, thank you for taking this journey through the stars with Jason and Rima. Your engagement, comments, and likes mean the world to me as a storyteller. Each time you share your thoughts or show your appreciation, it inspires me to keep creating and exploring new worlds. You are truly the best audience I could ask for, and I'm deeply grateful for your support. Your enthusiasm makes these stories come alive, and I couldn't ask for better companions on this creative adventure. With heartfelt thanks, yours truly, your storyteller, narrator, and hopefully friend in this cosmic journey of love and freedom.